Thank you, Jillian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know everybody's time is limited. We're going to have folks continue to drop in, but let's go ahead and start with doing introductions. And I'll call folks' name out and you can introduce yourself, and we'll just pick up other people as they drop in. Obviously, I'm Eldon James. I'm Rappahannock River Basin Commission staff. Jason.
Jason Bellows, supervisor from Lancaster County and current chairman of the commission.
Okay. Deirdre.
Deirdre Clark, John Marshall Soil and Water Conservation District, serving Fauquier County.
Luke.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Luke Peters with the Berkeley Group.
Tommy, you ready?
Tommy Blackwell, Commissioner of the Revenue, Essex County, friend of the Rappahannock.
Okay. Scott Cameron.
Good morning, Scott Cameron with the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. Hi, Deirdre.
Good morning.
All right, I'm gonna jump to the newest member of the group, Brianna Heath.
Hi, I'm Brianna Heath. I'm with the Northern Neck Planning District Commission. I'm the environmental planner. If you knew John, I knew him. So
Okay, welcome, Brianna. Glad to have you join us. Pat. You're on mute, Pat.
I'm really good on mute. I'm a note taker for the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust. And just for the record, I have a consulting business in Arlington called Pat's Garage, which puts conservation projects on the road.
Okay. And is there a band there?
Well, we're taking applications.
Okay. Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Edwards with the Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission. Morning, everybody.
Sarah Holberg.
I'm a planning consultant in Stanton, working with the Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley on solar issues there.
Thank you. Missy.
Good morning, Missy Neff, Senior Advisor for Environmental Outreach at Dominion Energy.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see, Amelia.
Good morning, Amelia Boshin, Manager of Environmental Regulations at Dominion Energy.
Thank you. Meredith.
Good morning. I'm the environmental planner at the George Washington Regional Commission, so Middle Rappahannock.
Thank you. Harrison.
Good morning, Harrison, planner with Culpeper County.
Thank you. And another new member to the group, and I'm just going to apologize up front because I'm sure he and I have only met by email. I've never heard him say his name. So Ashish.
You got it, 100%. Nice.
Oh, wow.
Good morning, everybody. Ashish Kapoor. I'm the Senior Energy and Climate Policy Analyst at Piedmont Environmental Council.
Welcome, and welcome to newer members of the group. It's great to have you. Okay, we are closing in on the end of this 15-month project, Jason. Okay, what
really opened up the bag on this one?
Yeah.
We like long projects though here at the commission.
Yeah, what commissioner cooked up this idea in December of 2021?
It certainly didn't take quite as long as the river gauge.
Well, a few things in life will take as long as the river gauge project. And those of you who haven't been around, you can't appreciate the humor of that. But what you have received, everybody should have gotten 3 Word documents, an email from me, and then a subsequent spreadsheet, some fine work by Tommy Blackwell. The first of those was a minor rewrite of the soil compaction and solar facility commissioning section. Dr. Daniels provided some edits, really just kind of cleaned up the language and clarified things a little bit. I'm happy to walk through them, but I don't know that I need to do that. If somebody feels like they need me to do that. Okay, I won't. Deirdre, when we were discussing that section, you had raised a couple issues, and I feel like what Dr. Daniels' clarifications did address yours. Are you comfortable with the way that's written at this point?
Yes, he did address compaction. The one thing that I think is becoming less popular is the stockpiling of topsoil. I don't see that so much in applications that we have received in Fauquier County, but I don't know that he has addressed that specifically. Depending upon the length of time at which the soil is stockpiled, it essentially is no longer topsoil, in my opinion, and I would think Professor Daniels would probably agree. So I don't know if we need to address that or not, but he does suggest that there are, any number of extenuating circumstances and issues that need to be addressed. So I think by general reference, he does address that.
Okay. I'll just say this, Deirdre, if you, in looking at that, want to offer a sentence to insert, I would agree, he would agree with you based on his presentation, but we're not saying that specifically. I'd be happy to insert that. That at some point in time, you've just got a pile of dirt, no longer.
Right. Dirt, right.
As my earth science teacher in 8th grade used to say, dirt is what you find under your fingernails. Soil is what's.
There you go, somewhat. I'd be happy to do that, Eldon. I'll get that to you hopefully later today, or if somebody else wants to interject a suggestion, I'm happy to entertain that idea.
What I'd want to do is just have it within the final, when we present it to the commission. We've got 2 weeks on that. I'm going to be working on that presentation between now and then. Jason, you had something?
Yeah, Eldon, is there a time frame of what is considered a reasonable stockpile?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'd look at Deirdre.
Would it be, I guess, it would be environmentally dependent on the site conditions?
Well, it depends upon the size of the pile, how long it's in place, the amount of biological activity that is monitored within the soil during whatever period of time. But I'll double check with our local soil scientist as well as our extension agent, and come up with something, run something by them. And we actually have a commission meeting coming up soon. So.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, and that moves us on to a section we're going to review for the first time, and this is the work of Rod Compton and Tommy Blackwell, local revenue implications, and this kind of summarizes the 2 presentations. The comments I've gotten back from our authors are, it looks good. Tommy, you want to make some comments at this point, since you were behind this?
Thank you. I was curious if you did hear from Rod, because he had moved on to another staff at tax.
I did not. I know he got my email. I know he got it. So I just had to assume that he was comfortable with it.
I haven't talked to Rod. No, I'm comfortable with it. And I've been going back through his presentation, because I'm actually putting together another presentation for the Commissioners of the Revenue Association next week. And I think this is a very concise explanation of what we went through, and it basically recognizes that there is a revenue impact for solar facilities, and it can be a little challenging at the local level trying to get through this. And I have learned a lot talking to folks in Lancaster, Richmond County, And well, primarily those two counties, they've done a lot. And anyway, I'm good with it, and I think it's we're ready to go.
Okay, I want to give anybody else an opportunity if you've got suggestions or questions about the summary we did. I mean, it does, to me, you know, reading back over the summary again, you know, kind of putting it down for a little while and then reading back over it this morning, it does make the point that it's complicated to value things, and it's the process has got to be taken seriously. To me, commissioners of revenue, and Tommy, tell me if you think I'm wrong, really should be reaching out to Virginia Tax for support in how they do the job, and the SEC in how they do the job.
Tommy, great collection of data for the basin projects. Did you have to was there a source for you to find all that, or did you have to basically reach out to each county and try to compile that yourself?
Talking about the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
I started out reaching out to the localities, and especially to commissioners of the revenue. I found out that many of my colleagues are not as up to date on this as I try to be. And that's not to their, you know, not faulting them. And some of the localities you'll see in the spreadsheet don't have any facilities at this point. So
Eldon.
Yes.
This is really great data, and I think it would be really behoove the public to have sort of access to this. Is there any way that either our group or somebody can create basically a data map of this on a website where you could go to each county and click on it, and then you could go into, say, Lancaster County and say you could go and pinpoint and click on Waller Solar, and it would give you details about that solar project?
That's a great question. You know, the RRBC staff does not have GIS capability. So we'd have to look to our PDCs, and I don't know if one of our PDC reps would like to jump in at this point and see if they could help us out here.
let me interject at this point. You asked where was my source of data. Yes, it was at the local level. I had a couple of folks in Lancaster who were very helpful. Had a former county administrator in Richmond County who's now working with the solar industry, who was very helpful. And but the biggest source is DEQ. DEQ has a spreadsheet of all the solar facilities. Well, almost all. They did not have Spotsylvania, and I guess it's because Spotsylvania is a different class. The solar facility in Spotsylvania is a mega facility. But anyway, DEQ has a spreadsheet that is updated periodically. I mean, it looks like it's updated at least once a month with all the solar facilities. And I could give you a link to that. I didn't think I should have had it ready today.
Right.
That's probably, I bet, more great for somebody who's mining for technical stuff, but for the general public or somebody more interested on a broader approach to be able to just look at a map and click on Lancaster
Well,
County.
that would be nice to have a map. Yes.
To have some sort of data map like that, I think would be very valuable.
Right. And you click on a facility like Waller, and then it would pull up, you know, specific information about it.
And so, I mean, ultimately, if I clicked on, somebody could get to the siting agreement and look at it and then be like, oh yeah, well, we can emulate that in our county.
Right. I did not get a complete I did not get all the data on siting agreements that I was hoping to get. Revenue share is pretty easy to find. You know, the localities have an ordinance for revenue share. But we could expand on this, and I'd be happy to continue to keep working on it into the future a little bit.
I just think this is fantastic. Just having this data collection is important, not only now, but into the future, because we won't be sitting in these seats in the future, and future leaders will need to be able to have a reference point of looking back at what has happened. And that's kind of where I am now with special exceptions over the years. From my board standpoint, it's like you pass these things and you move on. It's just like hard to keep track of them over time. And for somebody to have a collection of a single point where you can go in and find that and not have to mine through files and paperwork or minutes or what have you from old meetings is valuable, in my opinion, to the public's interest.
I also know that Aaron Berryhill at the State Department of Energy is constantly trying to keep a master list of all projects at either the State Corporation Commission or DEQ, permit, or whatever the appropriate verb is. So
Yeah.
he might be another source of information. He sent me a spreadsheet a few months back that had projects that both DEQ and the Corporation Commission were involved in.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll continue to work on that and see how far we can get between now and the presentation of the commission on the 28th, but it may continue to be a work in progress. As a side note, I have made a request of our friends in the solar developer community who had presented to us, if they could give us a list of the localities that, or even if it was just a partial list, especially if it was in the basin, that have projects that are under use agreement, host agreements. And they said they could, and they'd get back to me, and they have not yet. So, okay, anything else on this spreadsheet, Tommy, you want to, since we moved to that?
Well, obviously this is a moving target, but the thing I did want to capture, at least as of right now, was at the bottom, just the totals, to give an idea of, which localities are active. If it's red, you'd have nothing. If it's orange, you might have the locality might have a notice of intent. And those that were green actually had active permits. These may not all be online and running right now. But
what were the percentages right there next to the counties? Like Westmoreland says 26%. What does that mean?
That is from the RRBC website. The percentage of the locality's watershed is the Rappahannock River, the basin, right? And at the top there, it says jurisdiction, and then it says percent area in basin. That's what that percentage is. So, for instance, in Westmoreland, I've got a number of projects. I had not identified which ones might actually be in the Potomac Basin as opposed to the Rappahannock River. But anyway, just the idea was to have sort of an idea of the total number of active permitted projects in the basin, the total acreage that's being used for solar, and the total megawattage that is currently permitted in the basin. So that was my final takeaway from this spreadsheet.
Thank you, Tommy. Any questions for Tommy? Okay.
Eldon, I would think our Dominion friends and our other power companies would have some information on what projects have been approved within their systems. So that may be another source of getting data from.
Well, so I'll just say to Amelia and Missy, who are online from Dominion, if in looking at this, there are some boxes that y'all can help us fill in, we would welcome that.
There probably are. Let us talk offline, and if you could send us the sheet.
You should have it.
It was part of the other email.
Yeah, there were two emails that you got from me, one with the 3 Word documents and then a subsequent one with this spreadsheet. And if you can't find it, just ping me and I'll send it again.
Thank you.
Thank you in advance for your help. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and okay, that brings us to my attempt at conclusions. And I kind of broke it into three parts. I tried to identify points of agreement, and then points of friction, if you will, and then something that we talked about early on of trying to identify best policy practices, and I did that. And I trust folks to have been able to read it. I don't want to waste people's time by reading back through it. I'd just like to hear reaction to it. If you know, if it's too simple, too concise, you know, it's in terms of the policy best practices, you know, this over a year's worth of work, there weren't any things in our work that I could say, oh, we need to do this specifically. What did come out is there's things you need to do process-wise, or you should do process-wise if you're considering a project, and the community engagement just, you know, rose to the top. It's worth taking a broad view on the size of projects as you're making what are the best decisions for your jurisdiction. There's certain environmental considerations that jumped out, and you know, kind of tried to capture them here in at a high level. The statute that, and we talked about it just a little while ago, that empowers the local siting agreements, may have been the most important local empowerment policy decision that the state has made, in terms of helping projects be negotiated to work out the mitigating strategies for potential negative impacts. And of course, the biggest, you know, policy driver that got all this going was the VCEA, and then the market driver is the lowering of the cost of solar components and facilities. So that's kind of the summary on a thumbnail. And I would love to just be quiet and listen to people's reactions and what you think we got wrong, what we got right, what's helpful, what's not.
Eldon, I understand another market driver might be the growth of data centers in Northern Virginia and the fact that they are interested almost exclusively in being powered by renewable energy. I saw some statistic recently, and maybe our folks at Dominion could correct this, that the electric demand in Virginia is growing at a 5% annual rate, which is a lot faster than the growth of our population. And I think that's probably driven by the data center growth in Northern Virginia.
Scott, thank you for that. And I think we hit on that over the course of you know, listening our listening time to the different stakeholders. And my reaction would be that's worthy of bringing in at the appropriate place in these 3 pages. I'm not quite sure where at this point, but yeah, just like the lowering of cost, and maybe that's the place to put it. And yeah, I'd love to hear others' reactions to that.
I don't know about reactions to that specifically, but looking at the conclusions page, I think perhaps one of the important points that's missing is something that Deirdre has harped on before, which is, you know, there are going to be trade-offs in solar and renewable energy. You know, we want to protect the environment and we want to make clean energy. but informing particularly the rural localities that have the land, may not have the the capacity to deal with these huge facilities, making sure that they have baseline information about what the actual effects of these, quasi industrial facilities are actually going to be, environmental wise, economy wise, jobs wise. I think that's a pretty important point. Coming from the Berkeley Group's perspective, I think personally we all are pro solar, but we don't approach it from that perspective. We kind of just try to lead localities to the conclusions that are right for them, giving them the best knowledge and best practices that we have from our experience. And then, letting them decide based off of kind of common ground rules, what the, how they want to approach these huge solar facilities. So that's my 2 cents.
Luke, the great point, and I tried to say that in 2 places in pieces. If you look at the key points of conflicts, number 1, perspectives on land use, the second bullet, the second sentence, I tried to talk about the trade-offs without actually using the word, and local capacity really referred to local land use planning capacity. And maybe I was just too much of shorthand there. And then over in the best policy practices, number 6, capitalize on expertise and past experience. And I was trying to capture, draw on the resources from those who have gone before you. So I'd be happy if you want to offer some edits to maybe do what I was trying to say a little more clearly. But yes, I heard that is a key point that came out, the trade-offs and having a knowledge of what the impacts, good and bad, are, especially in the small rural communities. Other
Yeah,
comments?
I can definitely offer some edits.
Thank you very much.
Eldon,
Michelle, you get that look on your face.
I think you've done a great job capturing some of the themes, but I think that it is a little on the vague side. I don't know that this document is really going to help local governments, because I think most of the all of the information that's there are things that they already know because they're so general. But I think, certainly the process that we've gone through has been very valuable. So I think you tried to be very tactful in the way you said things. So it may be a little bit too watered down to be able to take this information and do anything with it in this particular summary. That's my 2 cents. So
and I appreciate that, and I accept the criticism, and I'm going to ask you back and say, okay, be a little less vague. Tell me some specifics.
So yeah, I think I almost want to see something when I think of best practices, I think of something that's more detailed than that actually has best practices, even if it's like a link to DEQ resources or something like that, like something tangible that local governments can use to be able to take it and go with it. And maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we don't have that information yet. I don't know. But yeah, I would like to see something more come out of this as far as something local governments could actually use or elected officials could actually use to do something with. But
yeah,
I don't want to, I know there are different perspectives that we've covered. There's the perspective of the solar utilities and Dominion and the local governments and the environmental groups, and they don't all agree to the same things. And I think you've captured what they do agree to, which is valuable. But in doing that, things like what Luke had mentioned kind of get lost in that. So I don't know. I don't know if it's worthwhile, because we've already gone through and said, this is what the solar utilities think, and this is what the local governments think. So we already have that. And I don't know that we need to rehash that necessarily, but I don't know. I'm struggling with this. I am, because I understand what you're trying to do to like have one page that distills everything.
So I'll just say that you're saying a little bit of, you feel my pain and what it took. Right, hold that thought. Harrison's got his hand up. I want to hear what Harrison wants to add.
Hi, yeah, just to not add on to it, but just kind of add a little bit of a clarifying question. Is it within this work group's priority to and maybe have actual policy recommendations as well as this general overview of all the different sides and all the different kind of consensus stuff? I know reading through the conclusions, it was kind of general stuff here and there. I was wondering if it's within our powers or interests to actually have specific policy recommendations, either to like for localities, kind of like what we were just talking about, to make things clear, or even to the state legislature as well. If not, then awesome. I was wondering on clarification side.
Well, I'm going to, before our chairman has to drop off, because he's got a 30-minute drive to a 10 o'clock meeting, so he's already almost late. I'm gonna look to my chairman, who helped me figure out what the commission wanted us to do when they gave us this rather vague assignment in December of 2021. Jason.
I mean, I think we're on the path. I mean, I think it's going to be kind of hard to get to a point that everyone agrees on everything. It is a little vague at this point, but I think once we get it, let's put it all together and then circulate it as a single document. And then we can start to like add or pick apart certain parts a little bit more and refine them a little bit before it becomes a final written document, essentially.
Okay, so present this to the commission in 2 weeks as a draft, put the whole document together, create a presentation to go with it, and then see if the elected officials want to give us more direction.
Yeah, that, and we can see if we can add in more details that may be missing from a comprehensive, because we've kind of approached it in piecemeal here, looking at it from meeting to meeting, and that's good for refining or looking at each section. But I think to get the flair of what the whole thing looks like in complete document will be beneficial. So I think we put all the pages together that we've gotten to this point and present it as a draft, and then we can refine that draft into a final paper over the next couple of months, and have a goal of trying to say by the December commission meeting have a final document.
Okay. I see Sarah Holberg has offered a comment in the chat. Sarah, can you come off a mute and embellish that a little bit?
So let's see, in 2019, I worked on recommendations. It's on the website of the Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley, and I'm trying to update it or refresh it. And there's just so much information, but I get Michelle's point, because trying to give the localities something to hang on to and say, this is the type of thing I should do, or here's a resource. It does get very complicated, but I'm kind of on a similar time frame. So if like some of what Luke is saying, and Michelle, if anybody wants to just talk through what types of things are the most helpful to suggest to localities, because they do need to learn from each other.
That in and of itself is a best practice. Sarah, would you be interested and willing to present the work that you're doing to a meeting of this committee, maybe in July or August?
I hesitate just because I'm not quite sure what the Alliance wants me to do with my
Fair
work,
enough.
but yes, I could try to, I just think it would be good to have a discussion because you all have had a wonderful format. And I've been reading and absorbing resources, but pulling it together, I think I would value, the sounding board. We all can say, here's a good resource on this, or one thing I'm struggling with is how to understand what the state of the development is. What the developers are doing or need. So whatever format, if you all do it in a through these meetings, I'm a little, I'm not sure that I'll have something to present, except that maybe you and I could work on that and talk about what you're looking at. How about that?
And Michelle has kind of sort of volunteered herself. Maybe the three of us could get on a Zoom and kind of rough out what that, and maybe presentation is too formal a word.
Right. I would like to learn together and put together, here's what we have gathered and know and where we are. And then I might be able to add, and I can certainly appreciate what you all have done. So yeah, let's talk offline and make a plan. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Safe travels.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right, other perspectives, thoughts, suggestions, critiques? Deidre.
Yes, including what Sarah has just said, as well as comments made by Luke and Michelle. One thing that perhaps is always in the back of my mind is the complexity of the legal agreements between either the landowner and the solar developer, or the landowner, the county or jurisdiction, whatever it is, and the developer. And it's been my experience in any kind of development that their lawyers are always better than ours. And one thing that I would like to see is some element, and I've talked to the Association of Soil and Water Districts about this, is some element of guidance or expertise that is offered to the landowner in particular. In other words, a lot of these rural landowners are being approached, with guns blaring and dollars flying through the air, and it's extremely complex. And I don't know who is a good source that is dependable, et cetera, ethical and available to guide some of these landowners through these application processes, as well as the counties. I think they go for the tax base. That's all they see is dollars, and end of story. That's the other part of my rant, Luke. So,
and part of what you're saying is why I made the ask of Michael Volpe. Did they have a list of the jurisdictions that had host agreements in place? Because those documents are, like a zoning document. They're public documents. Yes. And they become they become kind of the outline of, all right, here's what I ought to be putting in our agreement, just tailored to our situation. And that was my reason for seeking to identify those, and I'll continue to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Brianna.
Yeah, so I know I haven't been on any of these conversations, but I was just curious if it was talked about limiting the impacts to underserved communities and the importance of that.
I do not remember a conversation specific to that.
I just know that's it's been a huge conversation, especially with like Justice 40 and everything, that underserved communities and everything are impacted. And we want to limit environmental impacts to them as much as possible and focus environmental projects towards them.
So
So I didn't know.
you're using underserved in the context of an environmental justice
Yes,
perspective.
equity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Adam had his hand up and then took it down.
Sorry, just was going to say that we had asked the same question from Michael Volpe to provide some of the siting agreements they had done throughout the state, and we're about as successful as it sounds you were. So we do have a draft version into the Fauquier County, but not a whole lot of detail in it.
All right. Well, that's more to come on that then.
Correct.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. All right. Other suggestions. We got some suggestions here, some additional work to do. And I've got some help that's going to come from Deirdre and Luke. And Brianna, I may reach back out to you. I'm going to look back across the whole document and see where we touched that issue. I don't remember a specific direct conversation, but it wasn't like we were ignoring it either. So, Michelle.
On a somewhat separate note, I wanted to bring up that I heard a presentation yesterday at our Land Use and Environment Committee meeting from Jacob Gilley at American Farmland Trust, that they have a grant through USDA for climate smart agriculture that touches on some of this work. And I would strongly recommend you getting in touch with him, because it sounds like agriculture on solar land has progressed somewhat, or within the state at large. And there's work being done in that space that may be useful to tie into in this, at least to include information about that.
That's interesting. I spoke to someone with American Farmland Trust. I'm just looking for Brooks Lamb, who referenced that project. And basically said there's going to be more to come in Virginia on their work. So, so obviously there's more to come, because they sought me out to talk about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
And,
he sent me a one-pager, and I will forwarded that on to you.
Okay.
It doesn't include, he said it doesn't include it doesn't include specific information about the grant project, because they're still finalizing that contract and deliverables might change. But yeah, there's a one-pager that I can forward you, and you can get in touch with him to learn more about it. But yes, he presented to our Land Use Environment Committee. Yes.
Where is he from, if you don't mind me asking?
Madison.
Oh, okay. So
County.
he's local, because the guy Brooks Lamb is from Memphis.
Yeah, no, he's local. He's the local rep for, or one of the local reps for American Farmland Trust. So he's actually, it was our food council, not Land Use and Environment Committee. I apologize. It's our food council. Yes, sorry, too many meetings. Yeah, he presented on all of American Farmland Trust's activities within the region and broader and he's been working for American Farmland Trust, I want to say maybe for the last 5 years. Deirdre, is that correct? Do you know? Well,
yeah. No, but that's a good point. I agree. And that's what we need, is somebody with the broader scope. And I always go to North Carolina for a lot of information because they've been doing this for a much longer time. So
Yeah, there may,
might be
he
worth
sounds
looking
like
at.
good things are on the horizon from that standpoint, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Other, let's, Ashish, go ahead.
Yeah, just I had a couple points. One is Scott's comment made me think about something I'd seen regarding data centers and their sourcing from renewable energy. And, oftentimes if you have let's say a 50 megawatt PPA agreement that a facility has with a solar facility, half that energy might actually still be coming from non-renewable sources, because the nameplate of a 50 megawatt facility will not produce as much energy as, let's say, a natural gas facility or a coal facility. So just, oftentimes I think with the company saying we're getting 100% of our energy from solar, it's in nameplate only, and the fact is they're actually getting about half from other sources. So maybe too much in the weeds, but just something, if we do have a kind of portion on the data center within this, might be something just to mention. And then just a couple other things that I thought of, again, in a general document might be too specific, but I wonder if y'all have talked about the pollinator smart program in terms of soil management, and then any of the decommissioning processes and guidance for that, if and when that solar facility shuts down, how best to have money in escrow for the decommissioning, and best practices to return that land to some form of original state.
That was Dr. Daniel's portion of the work that really talked about the soil compaction and decommissioning. And so we need to look to see if we need to say a little bit more, I guess, in that area. And certainly the pollinator, the broader use of the ground cover, and that's an emerging. I mean, that's almost a continuously emerging situation, because when we started, there was some of the when we started doing this in beginning of last year, it was, well, that may happen, and now it's happening. And so there is reference to it in our work, but I'll look back to see if we can highlight that a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I was speaking with Darren Lawrence. They did the Foxhound installation with Longroad that Dominion purchased, and that's the first kind of large pollinator smart certified facility. So there's, I think, things that we can learn that went well there, but there's also challenges, I think, in getting seeds, and rain washes out a bunch of seeds, and now you have to spend significant amount more money to get those seed again. So there's challenges that we could perhaps if it's worthwhile to speak about, just to help guide more success with that program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Pat, did you have something and I miss you at one point? I saw your hand up at one point and we got into a conversation.
Well, it's kind of been covered. I've been on the periphery of this discussion, and so it's more as a backbencher. But I think the comments about the complexity struck me during all these discussions, and I don't know whether, particularly for jurisdictions that are just haven't addressed it, it seems like the document should be turned into a checklist of some kind and a resource list. So that was just off the top of my head.
All right, there's the beginning of a things to do list. And that gets it, can we add links to resources that I think Deirdre said, 30 minutes ago. Okay, got notes all over the margins of my conclusion here. Anything else before I turn everybody loose? All right, Deirdre, Luke, you've got assignments. Michelle and Sarah, I will do a reach out, and sometime, in the next, before the commission meeting, we connect just so that we can talk about, future when the commission considers this.
Mhm.
Okay, and if anybody has any thoughts or perspectives, or I didn't want to say it for the whole group, but feel free to drop me an email or call me.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
This reminds me a lot of surface mining in southwestern Virginia. Seriously, for example, with the pollinators, some studies have been done recently that have indicated that pollinating insects that migrate are delaying their migrations because of the heat island effect of the solar installation. So with every solution, there is an emerging problem. We just don't get it. So whatever. When it's on rooftops, I'll be a lot happier.
Well, we did
That's
actually.
the last of my rants.
We
No more
did
rants
actually
today.
say that. We did actually say that in here. You got to take a broad view. And
That's true.
everything from distributed up to utility scale.
And
But
skull and crossbones. Yeah. Sorry.
And okay. Thank you, Deirdre. It's important perspective. There's trade-offs in every policy decision. And hopefully the decision makers consider all the trade-offs before they make the final decision. All you can do is put all the information out there. And that's kind of the job of staff level. Okay. Thank you all very much. This has been a long process. I will not say arduous because there have been entertaining moments. We've got obviously got a little more work to do. And I encourage everybody, the commission meeting will be in Tappahannock on the 28th. We've got some other interesting things on the agenda. If the weather permits, a nice little site visit over to Hoskins Creek to see the project that the town has envisioned, which is really a cool project. Waterfront development at the site where the Captain Thomas used to disembark, and so it could be some interesting discussions. We'll hear also about the Middle Peninsula's project on Fight the Flood. If you can make it to Tappahannock, let us know so we make sure you have a chair for you. If you can't, you'll be able to beam in just like we do here, because we always have this as an option. And you'll be able to beam in and listen. You can text with me if somebody says something you don't like. I'll decide whether I'll tell the chairman or not. Okay, enough of that. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and you can have the rest of your day back, and more to come.
Thank you, Eldon.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Eldon. Bye-bye.
And welcome to all the new faces.